Just want to say, first of all, by the way, thank you to our partners for putting on this session, the Department of International Trade. There's a couple of people at the back with lots of money and facilitation. There they go, they're waving their hands, by the way, in the middle. So if you just want to find out generally afterwards how they can facilitate or support you in your endeavour to conquer the US market, those are the guys to talk to. But I think more importantly, we've got people on stage here who can signpost and signal that even better than they can or I can. We're trying to, this is a new series for people who are trying to do business globally in TV, and it's we're test driving this. Yesterday was China, today it's the US, tomorrow the world. So listen, this is the session looking at the all-important entertainment market, and I think for the purposes of this session, by the way, we're just talking, Sarah and I, that entertainment, this definition means kind of non-news, non-sport, non-kids. It's kind of everything else. It's not the genre, as we would call it. We've been talking about the fact that genre means something slightly different as between the UK and US. So we might get some language translation at some point on the panel too. I look after Endemol Shine's creative pipeline across the world, and I suppose I've got a vested interest in jotting down a few notes myself, because we spend a lot of time trying to work out how to crack the US market, how that missing strategic link can be put in place, because it's the biggest market, the most lucrative market. But it's not just that. It's when the US commissions something or is in on the deal, it signals something to the rest of the world. So these are crucial commissioners representing some kind of crucial platforms in a crucial market. We're going to look at how they commission, about what they're looking for, what kind of deals they do, hopefully, and maybe just get their views on the state of the entertainment business in general, given that it's, everything's going through a lot of change, tastes, demographics, technology, SVOD, social, all the rest of it. Just some sense of where it's all going to be really useful. So I'm just going to intro the panel. On my immediate left is Sarah Barnett. Actually, it's so nice to be able to welcome some presidents from America, isn't it? To feel generally welcome. I never thought
I haven't heard what I'm going to say.
There's a bit of political satire there to kick off. Sarah is the president of BBC America. We know that brand, but she's going to unpack what BBC America is in particular. And she's responsible for day-to-day operations of the whole of BBC America. I suppose then one of the most important brands that you've done so well within the States is Doctor Who. But you're going to talk about lots of other things that you're doing, because your genre appetite, that word again, is broader than that. Centre stage is Elaine Fronten-Bryant. Lovely to see you. EVP and Head of Programming for A&E. She oversees the development and execution of all the non-scripted and scripted programmes, and quite a bit more besides. So A&E have got a big reputation. Lots of us have been working with the A&E platform for many years now. So it'll be interesting to see, lots of innovation there, see where they're going next. And then on the left is Dan Cohen. He's the president of Worldwide Television Licensing at Paramount Pictures. Lots of interesting plans. Obviously, it's an incredibly powerful brand, Paramount, responsible for generating some of the world's great feature films, in particular from Indiana Jones to Star Wars and much beyond. But they've got some really interesting television ambitions. And Dan's responsible for all their global licensing and distribution. He's doing some interesting development deals at the moment. So we're going to talk a bit about that. Now, as we're a largely UK audience and we don't watch their output, shame on us, every day. We're largely unfamiliar with the channels. I thought we'd start by just asking you to sort of, bring your channels alive. If we were consumers today, or we were, watching your output today, what would we expect? And I think you're going to show a little show reel too in some order. So, Sarah, why don't you kick off and talk about BBC America? Welcome.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you, Peter. So BBC America, probably many of you have some kind of idea of what that network is. It was formed in '98 when cable was still in a growth phase in the US. Sadly, that's no longer the case. It's a very mature sector, and to some extent a contracting sector, which influences a lot of the decisions we make. So BBC America is pretty different to the BBC here in that we don't have a we don't have a license fee. We're commercial. We have adverts, and we don't have that same responsibility to provide something for everybody. And as is true with all of cable TV in the US, we serve a sort of particular niche. Now, compared to other US networks, cable networks, BBC America is nonetheless fairly multi-genre. So we have scripted, we have Broadchurch has just finished its 3rd season, so we have very sort of beautiful, exquisite character, amazing, extraordinary pieces. Doctor Who, everything in between. We have Top Gear. We have the natural history landmarks. We're going to be airing Queers later this year, and we have our own originals. So a more diverse slate of different kinds of genres, used in the British sense, than many other cable networks. So yeah, I mean, I'll bring some of it sort of alive, I'm sure, later, but I think we'll play the sizzle reel. It's very quick, sizzly, so blink and you'll miss half of it, but
lovely.
Let's go.
Thank you. Wow, I can't believe I just saw darts on an American sizzle. That's extraordinary. This is supposed to be non-sport.
Is darts
a sport?
It's about characters.
It's a genre. I mean, we're familiar with a lot of the content there. Are you just looking for stuff, as it were, with an established track record? Have the shows got to be established? Blue Planet, Top Gear, Doctor Who, or is there? How much scope is there?
Well, I think. I mean, it's a real mix. So Top Gear and Doctor Who. And now the landmark natural history shows, which used to be on Discovery and arguably sort of built that brand in the sort of, aughts, I guess we clumsily call that decade. So now they're on BBCA, which is fantastic. But on top of that, we commission our own originals, so you saw a few of them there, and I think we'll get into a little bit more of that.
Thank you.
Okay. But we also something like Queers, we also we have I think it's a Channel 4 show actually, but a Bruce Springsteen doc.
Yeah,
we did the Adele special.
Yeah, lovely.
We do the music awards. So we have a number of, we buy a lot of smaller.
Is Bruce British? Shows. Are you allowed to do Bruce?
The American bit of our name.
Okay. We'd like him to be British. So let's move on to A&E Networks, because you're one of the most established networks in the States, long-standing, range of channels, history of Viceland. Elaine, will you tell us a bit more about the scope of what you do? It's pretty broad.
So, I'm here for A&E Network. AETN is History, Lifetime, and part of Viceland for sure. It's been a very exciting 2 years for A&E because we've kind of rebranded ourselves. We were sort of living under the extreme success of Duck Dynasty, which I think kind of overshadowed us. And 2 years ago, I came back over. I had been at History Channel for a while, and we decided very purposefully to lean back into kind of being a leading edge nonfiction brand that brings sort of provocative, culturally relevant programming about kind of shows that kind of matter in the world. If Intervention is a North Star, a show that's been on for over a decade, that is our North Star. And we've, in this last couple of years, followed that up with a show called Born This Way, which won the Nonfiction Emmy last year. And then a really special show called 60 Days In.
We'll talk about that in a bit more detail.
Which I will talk about.
Is that airing in the autumn?
What?
That's airing in the... Is that 60 Days In? Is that started already? Is it?
60 Days In has had...
multiple.
Several seasons. Yes.
Yeah. So
and Leah Remini, Scientology and the Aftermath.
Right.
And then an amazingly successful show called Live PD, which has worked for us.
Okay.
But we are a general entertainment brand. And so you can still find, a docusoap about the Wahlburgers on our channel. And this piece of tape is a part of a rebrand that just happened August 15th, and it shows kind of how they all can work as a piece. Our marketing, I think, did a great job.
Brilliant. Thank you.
The art of storytelling is to find the truth in everything. For me, it's intoxicating. I love it.
In pop culture, we need to see people with disabilities. If you don't look at me, you'll never know me.
I am not a believer in that there's three sides to every story. I believe there is the truth, and that's what I'm interested in.
I think when we look closer at the Wahlbergers, we see how many of us have 8th grade educations. You'll see a family, you'll see love, you'll see struggles, you'll see the truth.
I cannot think of a better way to show what law enforcement officers go through on a daily basis. It's not scripted, unedited, and I don't think it could have come at a better time.
Storytelling needs bravery because it's scary to say the words, I was kidnapped, raped, and held captive for 9 months.
Nobody wants to go on television and say, I was duped, I gave up my children, I gave up my life. I think that's what's so touching.
I don't want you to think of my disability. I am not my disability. I just want to be equal with everybody.
What we've been able to do is tell human stories. We're just scratching the surface.
How many, just give us a sense of scale, how many hours of original,
300 plus. And we, about 6 months ago, we made a very clear decision to move away from doing scripted on this brand.
Yeah.
And lean in our, creative and financial resources to nonfiction.
Yeah.
So, and it's paid off, Live PD we just ordered 100 episodes of Live PD, 3 hours, 3-hour episodes.
Per week.
Which I know is a big thing in this country in particular.
We should talk in a second.
Exciting.
We should talk a second about how UK producers can get their hands on. Are they just American stories?
300 hours.
I'm just being leading in mind. I know you commission from around the world, but you're not just interested in American stories, as it were.
Yeah, we are, but I would say that UK producers can find American stories because quite often we are developing from a newspaper article or a famous story that is accessible to anyone, and a subject matter. We're developing something right now about youth in America, and that could just be, from a...
I'd love to talk about that in a bit more detail.
Okay.
In a second. It sounds amazing.
Later.
Yeah, I'll do it next, thank you. Just to kind of
Sure.
get you set up, but I'd love to talk about that. It sounds really exciting. Dan, welcome. Paramount has a long history in making those amazing movies, but we talk a little bit about Paramount's revived interest in television, and then we could show your sizzle.
Absolutely. So thank you, Peter. It's great to be here. To clarify a little bit, since this was billed as a network executive panel, I'm actually not a network executive, although I'd like to be one. If maybe we can talk after.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see how you do.
Paramount, the movie studio, Paramount Pictures is who employs me. Paramount is owned by Viacom, which has a lot of cable channels. One of them that exists internationally is actually called the Paramount Channel, and today it's primarily a library movie service. The U.S. service, Spike, is being rebranded as the Paramount Network in the U.S. next year. I won't run that because, like I said, I'm not a network executive yet. But Kevin Kay, who does run it, works very closely with us because it's our brand, and whether it's licensing him Forrest Gump or Indiana Jones or developing series, we will work very closely with him. Separate from that, as Peter alluded to, Paramount has a rich history in television production, whether it's Mission Impossible or Star Trek or Happy Days. But a number of years ago, Viacom separated into 2 companies. One still Viacom, which still owns Paramount, the other CBS. And the historic Paramount television series went to CBS. So 5 years ago, Paramount Television was reborn. The development production arm is run by a colleague of mine by the name of Amy Powell, who I obviously do collaborate very closely with. And we are in a bit of a rebirth, and I think in a very short time, Paramount has come a long way. 13 Reasons Why is a series that is heading into season 2 on Netflix that got a lot of attention.
Yep.
Shooter, which in the US is on USA Network, internationally, depends on the market, it's with Netflix in a lot of territories, is another series of ours. Shooter is based on a Paramount movie that starred Mark Wahlberg, so I love Wahlburgers. Mark and Steve Levinson produced Shooter for us, and that's in production for season 2. So I'm a little bit of a different panelist in that I'm not running a network or programming for a network, but we're looking to produce anywhere and everywhere there's opportunities, and a lot of that will be co-production.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the co-production you're looking at in a second, because there's some interesting examples just to kind of unpack. Just introduce your lovely sizzle.
Sure. So these are some of the shows that we have produced or are in production on as part of, as I mentioned, the 5-year rebirth odyssey that Paramount has undertaken. And I think that it's about a minute, and I think the shows are set up okay inside of it.
Yeah.
Here we go again. Do your job. You leave everything else to me.
You're one of the reasons why my life ended.
Jack, I need people like you. You show great initiative.
Shoot me. I drop this and we all die.
Who are you?
A toast to the beginning of a fruitful partnership.
Dan, it might be worth just giving us a flavour of the development deal you're looking at around The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, because just to talk about what you are bringing through right now. I think about 6 months ago, you kind of kicked off your first development deal.
Yeah, so The Spy Who Came In From the Cold is obviously based on the famous novel.
Yeah.
The movie is a Paramount movie, and this is actually being done with Ink Factory. So it's a similar model to Night Manager.
Yeah.
We would have distribution everywhere except US, UK, and Canada. And we're still at the script stage. So Peter, it's going to be a little while till we know whether we have something that we can actually go into production on or not, but we're very excited about it. I think it's a really good IP. I joined Paramount in April. So I knew the movie. I hadn't seen it in quite some time. And when I watched it, I thought, it really is something great to work from. And the model of Night Manager is sort of what we're shooting towards. So we'll see if we can get anywhere half as successful as that. It'd be terrific.
The Night Manager, yeah. So it's a piece of Paramount IP.
Yes.
Originally, but you're developing it as a genuine co-production with a small number of partners.
Yeah, that's correct. And we do both.
Yeah.
We have a rich film library. So Shooter, as I mentioned, is based on a Paramount movie.
Yeah.
You saw in development American Gigolo. That's a Paramount movie. But we also do things like 13 Reasons Why, which is original IP. It showed on the reel as in development, a show called Maniac. It's actually in production. Yeah. It's based on a Norwegian series.
Norway, yeah.
So that's not our IP.
No, it's lovely. Rubicon.
And that's Cary Fukunaga, who did True Detective, and it's Jonah Hill and Emma Stone. It's for Netflix. So that's something, that we didn't do it because we owned the IP. We went out and acquired the IP.
Fantastic. Should we just talk a little bit about the state of entertainment today, given we've got you and you know so much about the sector, and we'll drill back into some of your commissioning priorities. I'm just kind of curious because we know we've got Roy here from Amazon tomorrow, and obviously OTT platforms are kind of changing the world as well in terms of how people consume and relate to content these days. I just wonder, Sarah, whether or not sort of lessons learnt from, in terms of how you launch product or how you talk about your stories, how you schedule it. Will you give us a sense of how things are changing in the US?
It's such a huge topic. I mean, I think that it can't be overestimated in the US how fragmented the marketplace is, how many platforms there are, how many scripted shows, over 500 this year. HBO spends $3 billion a year, FX spend $1 billion, Netflix is spending $7 billion next year. That's their global spend. But there's so much money going into the creation of TV. Do you guys use the phrase peak TV here? Does it come over here?
It does.
So it's been used in the past year or two in the US to really explain this somewhat irrational moment where there's so many shows being created and not really an ecosystem financially to support them all. So it's interesting. So people are sort of, so that has a few effects. I mean, I think that A&E's decision to get out of scripted and WGN are the other sort of poster child for doing that, is a smart one. It's about saying who you are and who you're not. And I think increasingly with so many platforms, one has to increasingly interrogate who you can be to an audience that matters enough for you to sustain your business, and what kind of content is best suited to what kind of viewing experience as well. So one of the things that I think is probably true is that, you know, exquisite, slow character, I'm talking about scripted here, pieces are probably best on a streaming service where there aren't commercials and where the quietness, if you like, you know, the lack of sensationalism means that people can watch them in a business model that allows them to find it when they want and watch it how they want. If you try and put that stuff on a cable TV network where your business model requires people to watch live or within 3 days and then to come back every week for a show that is relatively quiet in the landscape, you're kind of doomed. Now that doesn't mean that people don't air some of that, because how a network increasingly evaluates what matters is a mix of different factors. Of course, it's business, but it's also brand, and it's also awards are important. So, you know, people still do have different kinds of content, but I think it's shifting. And I think for a cable network, to me, what that says is just the puzzle is a little different. And actually, I think it's kind of interesting because as far as I can tell, the best thing to aim for is a schedule which is, as cable always has been, what's called lean back TV for a lot of the time. So stuff that is familiar, stuff that people can watch. And then with your originals and the stuff that defines your brand, I think it's about just being ever more distinct, bold, creative, original, and different. I think you have to.
Right. No, that's really good. And it just leads me on. I just want to ask you about your latest commission, because I mean, just thinking about BBC America, just thinking about being distinctive. You've just commissioned I think a scripted series written by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who's here tomorrow talking about Fleabag. Yeah. Called Killing Eve. Yeah. Just talk about that, because that's a big, bold, original BBC America-led commission. That's
right. Yeah, so this was a piece that actually was developed here. Sid Gentle is the indie that owns it, and Phoebe and Sally Woodward Gentle have been working for a while on developing this, and you know, we need storytelling. Our scripted stuff has to have sort of big stakes. You know, it has to work with commercials. It has to have wild swings in storytelling, but it also has to be smart, have characters you really care about, have an emotional investment, and crucially be smell really fresh. And I think that the opportunity for us to develop a scripted show with someone who has a voice like Phoebe, was really exciting. And you know, so we put it into development along with a number of other projects. We don't have a ton of projects vying for any given slot, but we had maybe, you know, boiled it down to 5 or 6 that were really great from about 15, and chose Killing Eve. And it's a thriller, so it's a cat mouse. It's 2 women you saw there very briefly, Sandra Oh and Jodie, I'm so jet lagged, 13, Jodie Comer. Jodie Comer. And that one's a cop, one's an assassin. So it's sort of thrilling and it's sexy, and it's, you know, shot in London and Berlin and Paris and blah, blah, blah.
And where will we see it here? Will we see it here on...
Don't know yet.
Don't know, right. A&E buyers in the room, OK. and our American...
But crucially, sorry, just to finish that and then I'll stop. But crucially, it's not just about that kind of thriller. It's not just the sort of genre you expect. It's really about Phoebe's weirdness, you know, so it's about a sort of conventional, exciting kind of plot, and then it's just about this voice, which is, you know, hilarious, but in a broader way is just super different and super kind of eccentric and genius.
And maybe this is a general thing for the panel, but because it may not just be BBC America audiences, but are audiences in the States looking for a British flavour in that sense? I mean, I know you've got a particular place in this market, but she's a very particular, I mean, this sort of British voice. Yeah.
I mean, I think that, you know, I mean, British content is on more and more platforms. It used to be, you know, BBCA and PBS were the only gigs in town. I mean, you know, everyone is buying British content, so much so that I can't afford a lot of the stuff that I really want. in many, I mean, you know, Night Manager is an AMC show, which I couldn't pay the amount they're paying. But I think that, I don't know that people are specifically looking for British voices other than, you know, something like BBC America. But I think that people are looking for fantastic, fresh content, and I think there's great talent here.
So just talk about the talent here. Just Elaine, can I just talk to you about, because you've worked a lot with British talent and British companies, British producers. You commission quite a lot of them. I'm just interested in how they plug into this sort of mission you've got of you know, shows that have got something to say, which I think is really exciting. You know, issues of kind of culture and relevance and timeliness, as well as entertainment. We just talk a bit about that and maybe how it relates to British sensibility, if that's useful.
Right. I think it's not a mandate in any way other than I think, you know, it's a personal mandate, and I think it helps ratings, frankly. I think because it taps into a zeitgeist, you know, it taps into what people are thinking about, whether they know it or not, really. And so it's not good for you programming. It is about always entertainment first. Yep. But I think it's tapping into something about culture. So 60 Days In, for instance, is really a prison show. We know prison shows rate, but there was a conversation happening in our country about prison reform. And so that's the bigger picture thing that we could do. So innocent people go into jail to try to make it better, and they do. And that's how it was comfortable for us, for A&E, to do a prison show. Live PD, big conversation about the ethics of policing in America and the transparency. Great, let's do it live and see. Could we even do it? What excites me the most is when someone pitches me something and I go, can we even make that show?
Is that possible?
How do you do it? That is the kind of thing that makes me excited. And this next show, can I do it?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about
this next show. It is from the producer's Lucky 8 of 60 Days In, and it's called Undercover High. And it is, you know, there is a big conversation, you know, 13 Reasons Why was a big part of that, of we do not understand the youth of America right now, and high schoolers in general. And the show we're doing, Undercover High, is we were invited by a superintendent and a principal to have young adults go undercover into a high school for a full semester, because the kids are not talking to the adults or the counselors or the teachers or whatever. And so it's not hidden cameras. They think we're doing a documentary about high school, but it's a little 21 Jump Street kind of, and
but they don't know you've got undercover students there. They know you're shooting
they don't they don't know, you know. And so the participants all have a reason for going back. And so there's a relatability, because everybody, like, would you really want to go back to high school? But there's actually, I really liked high school. So, but even, you know, the 21-year-old going back, so much has changed. You know, like, there were no smartphones 3 years ago in that way. So it's kind of amazing what we're finding, and it will make this school in particular, it's in Topeka, Kansas, middle of the country, where Brown versus the Board of Education happened. And so it's really amazing what we're finding. I think it will be very riveting, but entertainment first, but we will make this school better. And I think, really start a big dialogue.
Yeah, start a big dialogue. And it's interesting because, so talking about policing in America, prisons in America, the relationship with teens in the States, is there, just putting it out there, are there any other areas of American public discourse that are, sort of on, hovering on your radar?
And wait, can I just say something? There's a phrase I kind of say, we hide the broccoli. Like, it is entertainment first.
Chips out
there is really, like, it is, these are entertainment shows that you're absorbing the subject. So it is not like a phase forward, like, watch this documentary on.
There's an issue.
That is, I think, mental health is something that we haven't quite tackled. People still have to come home and want to watch it, and that's the challenge with maybe something like a mental health. I don't know if we can do that.
Very good. Listen, and Dan, just talk about how important is international appeal for you when you're coming up with a new format, you know, given you're a big global brand?
It's wildly important. So 70% of my division's revenue, of Paramount, the movie studio's revenue, is now international. And the shows we do, you saw them on the reel, not only do they have to work internationally, we are also shooting many of them in Europe. Berlin Station shoots here. Alienist was shot in Europe. Even Shooter, which is a pretty American series, it works internationally, and season 2 was largely shot in Europe. A lot of it was shot in Germany. So it matters a great deal, Peter. I wanted to touch back on your SVOD just real briefly.
Yeah, please.
For folks in the room that are producers.
Because you worked worked setting up at Disney, didn't you? The Netflix.
Yes, I worked on the deal that got a lot of press. I shouldn't say that I would have extended it.
We need to know more about it.
I was proud of the deal. But Roy Price at Amazon would come see me at Disney before they ever licensed any content. And I actually worked on the first deal Disney did with them. Same with Netflix. And with Netflix, it was Sweet Life of Zack and Cody from the Disney Channel, Brothers and Sisters, Deep Library off of ABC, some Lost episodes. And it's stunning how far they have come and how quickly. But for producers, one of the things, if you haven't had a Netflix or Amazon meeting, and if you can get to Roy while he's here, there's nothing wrong with that. Their model's different. They cover the cost of production. They will typically pay more than the cost of production. It's a big ask. More and more they want global rights. They want them for a long period of time. But it's a different discussion. And they are, as everybody has seen, very aggressive on chasing content they want. And as their services continue to grow, you know, it has allowed them to continue to maybe not literally double down, but probably literally double down. The other thing to keep in mind, there are a lot of local SVOD services. So in the U.S., Hulu takes that role, and *Handmaid's Tale*, which is a huge series,
shown here on
Channel 4 in the UK. It turned a lot of heads for Hulu in the U.S. I have a couple of SVOD clients in China that drive a lot of my growth, and there are a dozen behind them that we do business with. So it's a really evolving space.
And can I just pick up on that? I mean, maybe I could just extend that to the rest of the panel too, just to think about how you think about the SVOD commissioning approach, their interest in a particular business deal, and all the rest of it. I'm just wondering whether your commissioning processes, you know, the IP that you're typically interested in, you know, the kind of business deals you do. Have you got any tips, any red lines, maybe just to, you know, are you more flexible than the OTT platforms? Are you willing to kind of, you know, carve out rights for, you know, IP is a big thing for producers. Have you got a position on it you just want to kind of explain a little bit?
In the world I'm in, we're not working with SVOD thing. I think that's more of a scripted, carving out SVOD rights for that.
I'm thinking more about the kind of business deals, you know, how flexible you are in terms of, you know, rights being retained by producers.
You know, we can be. We typically commission, and we prefer to do that because we have a robust business, but never say never.
You can be
flexible. Do AMC Studios own the Live PD? Is that AMC Studios show?
No, it's us.
Sorry, not AMC. I meant to say A&E. Sorry.
So
A&E. Yes.
Right.
So then you can be flexible when you want to be, or when the proposition's right.
You know, the amazing thing about A&E is that our back end is a very good, healthy one. It's probably one of the best in the business. And so
producers can do pretty well.
So that's really.
And do you co-produce? Just give me a sense. Forgive me. I know the answer to some of the questions, but you co-produce here in the UK with certain channels as well, or you work with ITV.
We entertain that for certain specials. Okay. We've never really done that on series.
Okay. All right, but specials can become series, I suppose, if the model works.
Could, you know?
Okay.
I guess they could.
Just hold out a bit of hope for me.
Okay, sure.
Okay. And Sarah, just talk a bit about kind of your typical budget, as it were, you know, or your typical co-production deal.
It varies. I think BBCA is one of the few US networks to commission scripted content from a UK indie, and we want to do more of that. And our model there is, you know, like everyone in the US, as our TV platform business is contracting, the studio business, the ownership part, becomes increasingly desirable. So certainly AMC Studios, a show like Dirk Gently is owned by AMC Studios, for instance. It's an interesting combo, distributed by WEM on Netflix outside of the US, globally, so it's sort of a, you piece these things together. But Killing Eve is not owned by us, so BBC America is a joint venture with BBC and AMC Studios. So when I say us, AMC Networks operates BBCA. But Killing Eve is a, the indie owns that IP, and we took rights for all of North America, and they retained rights for rest of world. Again, WME are distributing it.
How many episodes?
Killing Eve?
Yeah.
8 for the first season.
Oh. Well, okay, I just want to open it up to the floor in a second. Just, I've got a few more questions, obviously, I'd like to ask, but there might be people in the room who I know. I can see some faces of people who make scripted or factual or probably work in the States quite a bit who have. Anybody brave enough, bold enough, interested enough just to raise their hand and ask the odd question? Thanks. Just give us your name and just wait for the mic, and then we'll give us a question. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nico Franks from C21 Media. It's a question for Dan, something you mentioned earlier about if you were still at Disney, that you would have extended the deal. If you could elaborate on that and why, that would be really interesting.
See, I knew people would be interested.
Yeah, let me rephrase just so that it's accurate. I'm very proud of the deal, and I haven't been at Disney in a number of months, so in all candor, I don't really know the specifics of what led to the decision. And even what was said publicly was about extending that deal, which is different than whether Disney and Netflix will stay in business together. So I'm probably not the right person at this point to really expound on that. It's something that I spent a good bit of time on. I was part of the team and was proud of it. And I think it's actually been good for both companies. And I suspect that they will stay in business, in lots of ways, whether it's the Marvel series or, some of the movie content. So it was probably not my best answer, to be honest with you.
Being very diplomatic. Question here. Is it Malcolm? Yeah, hi mate. Just get you the mic.
Hi, it's Malcolm Brigworth. In terms of BBC America, you've talked a lot about scripted, but in terms of unscripted, what are the opportunities for British producers in that space?
Not a ton right now. We don't do a ton of our own unscripted. The network over the years has experimented with a lot of that. Really what's ended up working are those big shows that we co-produce.
Blue Planet.
Blue Planet. Planet Earth did, it was an extraordinary show. It did amazingly for us, and I know it did amazingly here. Top Gear. We are doing our own format, our own US version of Top Gear, which previously was on History. They called it Top Gear US, we call it Top Gear America, whole different bunch of hosts, and that's doing well for us. But that's really just about sort of expanding that franchise, seeing what we can do with that. Yeah, not a ton. Again, in a world where really the game is getting share of attention from audience to survive, you just have to some extent, focus on a number of things and jettison others. Mm-hmm.
Elaine, I just wondered where, just might be another couple of questions before we finish, just squeeze a couple more, where the kind of true crime genre is going, because it's been so successful for you, and it's been a bit of a sort of golden age of innovation in the true crime space.
Yeah, and I think my colleague Laura Fleury is doing a whole panel here on it today or tomorrow. But, First 48 continues to be a very successful show for us, and we have a Dick Wolf show called Night Watch, which works for us. We just launched a show last week called The Murder of Lacey Peterson, which I hate saying that phrase, but some of these iconic big cases, the Menendez brothers, Lacey Peterson, we are exploring, as are other networks. We are just holding ourselves to a very, very, very high bar of exclusivities. So, for instance, Scott Peterson from Death Row is part of our Lacey Peterson project, and there's a fascinating thing around this case in that it's the 15th anniversary. But what was going on at the time, and the cable TV and Nancy Grace having 24/7 cable news, and the murder or the disappearance of this beautiful pregnant woman on Christmas Eve. Like, it just was the flurry of what, you know, happened. It kind of talks about our culture in a way, this case too, and so we're looking at it through this prism. So it's a pretty fascinating story.
I mean, no end, obviously, the appetite for the genre, the rest of it. It's just new ways to tell stories, your life crime, and a whole bunch of different things you guys are doing. In that space.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, and can I just ask? I just want to ask a little bit about sort of reboots, or, you know, sorry.
Actually, can I just what I should have done is sort of that space, that kind of provocative intervention, Born This Way, Leah Remini. You know, we have those kind of documentary type things. We have what we call the Masters of the Universe, the kind of Storage Wars, Wahlburgers, you know, great character-led, sort of close-ended type things. And then we have crime, for sure. So those are the three areas that we definitely are in. We are also bringing back the biography franchise, which has been dormant for over a decade. And iconic names. We were inspired by, I think, the Amy Winehouse film, I think, that made us go, wait, we should own this. So sort of the definitive, you do not need to see it again. Our first film is coming out September 4th on Biggie, the hip-hop artist, and it is amazing. It is, I think, truly that. You will not need to see another film.
And I presume you pay... I mean, those are reasonably well funded.
Yeah, I don't know that it's exactly like that,
cinematic
but
in that way.
You know, we didn't pay what the Amy Winehouse film was, but they're well funded. You know, they're well funded and they're beautifully produced.
So even though they're singles, what I'm saying, even though they're singles, these are, you know, not just the stories people want to tell. They're decent. They're proper bits of business. People to do. I
mean, this is a 3 hours with the family. It was just time. We have full access. We're doing a 6-parter on Who Killed Tupac. I know they both look very hip-hop. But timed to the anniversaries and 4 hours on Gotti.
And it's just talk about the thing about reboots. I mean, biography is not a reboot. I know these are new titles, but just think about the whole world of. I mean, you guys kicked it off in some ways with Doctor Who. You know, Doctor Who was a glorious time-traveling reboot. Are you into, or, you know, think about Family Fortunes or Fear Factor or Will and Grace being revived or The Bachelor. Any interest in, you know, people here have got a wonderful piece in their archive or a great relationship with a piece of talent, and they're you know, there's a reboot just. Are you interested?
We're really interested in classic IP. That, I mean, we developed Quatermass.
Yeah, of course.
With Nicola Schindler and Red, and it was fantastic. You know, in the end, you just have a sort of embarrassment of riches in these scenarios. But so we're definitely interested in potentially in
classic
exploring. Those. I mean, it's amazing classic British sci-fi.
And Dan, what about you guys? Just the resonance that there.
Yeah, I think one of the tools that we have to work from is, as I referenced with some of the examples already, is our film library. So one of the series I didn't mention, so I will now, that was in the reel, is Jack Ryan, which is based on the Paramount film franchise. Shooter, based on a Paramount film. Spy Came from the Cold. We have American Gigolo in development at Showtime. So if a producer brought us a reboot that we didn't own, Maniac I wouldn't call a reboot, it's based on a current Norwegian series. We're interested in that too as a piece of business if we think it would be good television and we could make it successful, but we definitely look within our own library at opportunities, and I think we'll continue to do that.
Well, thank you, guys. I think we've got to wrap up, but it's you know, whether it's you know, innovation or reboots or you know, just great cost-effective programs, we're here in the UK sector to serve you your broccoli.
Thank you.
Your broccoli and your fries.
Do you hide the broccoli, or will you put it
I love the hiding the broccoli thing, because I do it all the time with my kids. So and now I can translate that into program making. But just to say thank you very much to our panelists for this.
Thank you.
Thanks.